You can love your husband deeply and still push him away every single day without realizing it. Strong statement, right? So let me ask you something honestly. How many times did you mean well, but the conversation ended in silence, distance, or tension instead of connection? Because it's not just what you say, it's how, when, and why you say it. And no, this isn't about staying quiet or accepting everything, so relax, don't get nervous. It's about influence, and most people never learn this. At first, everything feels easy, words flow, understanding comes naturally. Then comes the clash where tone sharpens, reactions get quicker, and suddenly small conversations feel like battles. And here's the turning point where many relationships start to slowly disconnect without a clear reason. And let me interrupt you for a second. Have you ever finished a conversation thinking, "That's not what I meant at all"? Exactly. That's where the problem hides. And if you think communication is just about talking, stay with me. Because there's a hidden principle almost no one pays attention to, and once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. Tone and timing matter more than the message, because the way something is delivered often determines how it is received, understood, and remembered, sometimes even more than the actual content itself. A message that is correct, necessary, or even helpful can be completely rejected if it is communicated with the wrong tone or at the wrong moment. This is where many conversations begin to break down, not because the idea is wrong, but because the delivery creates resistance instead of openness. People do not respond only to words. They respond to the emotion behind those words, the energy in the voice, and the context in which the conversation happens. Tone carries emotion, intention, and attitude. It can communicate respect or disrespect, patience or frustration, care or indifference. A calm and gentle tone can make even a difficult message easier to accept, while a harsh or sarcastic tone can turn a simple statement into something that feels like criticism or attack. This is why two people can say the exact same sentence and get completely different reactions. The difference lies in how the message is expressed, not just what is being said. In relationships, tone becomes even more important because of the emotional connection involved. Words spoken with irritation can quickly trigger defensiveness, even if the message itself is valid. Once defensiveness appears, the focus shifts from understanding to protecting oneself, and communication becomes less effective. On the other hand, a respectful and composed tone invites the other person to listen, reflect, and respond in a more constructive way. It creates a safe space where dialogue can happen without fear of being attacked. Timing plays an equally critical role. Even the best message can fail if it is delivered at the wrong moment. When someone is tired, stressed, distracted, or emotionally overwhelmed, their ability to process information is limited. In such moments, even small comments can feel heavier than they actually are. Choosing the right time to speak shows awareness and respect for the other person's state. It increases the likelihood that the message will be received with clarity rather than resistance. Many conflicts happen not because of disagreement, but because of poor timing. A conversation that could have been productive becomes an argument simply because it was initiated at a moment when emotions were already heightened. Timing requires patience, the ability to wait until both people are in a better position to communicate effectively. This does not mean avoiding important conversations, but approaching them with sensitivity to the situation. Another important aspect is the combination of tone and timing. A good tone cannot fully compensate for poor timing, and perfect timing cannot completely fix a negative tone. Both elements need to work together to create effective communication. When the tone is calm and the timing is appropriate, the message has a much greater chance of being understood and accepted. Tone and timing also reflect emotional intelligence. Being aware of how one's voice sounds and when to speak requires self-control and awareness. It involves recognizing one's own emotions and choosing not to let them dictate the way communication happens. This level of control is not always easy, especially in moments of tension, but it is essential for maintaining healthy interactions. In many situations, people focus on what they want to say without considering how it will be received. They prioritize expressing their thoughts quickly, often driven by emotion, without reflecting on the impact. This approach can lead to misunderstandings and unnecessary conflict. Taking a moment to adjust tone and choose the right time can completely change the outcome of a conversation. Tone also influences interpretation. Words can have multiple meanings depending on how they are spoken. A simple question can sound like curiosity, concern, or accusation depending on the tone used. This means that tone shapes perception, guiding how the message is understood. Being mindful of this helps prevent misinterpretation and keeps communication clear. Timing, on the other hand, influences readiness. A person who is mentally and emotionally prepared is more likely to engage in a meaningful conversation. When timing is ignored, even the most reasonable message can be met with resistance or indifference. Respecting timing shows consideration and increases the effectiveness of communication. Respectful communication builds emotional connection because it creates a safe space where both people feel valued, heard, and understood without fear of being judged, attacked, or dismissed. In any relationship, especially a close and intimate one, emotional connection is not built only through shared moments or responsibilities, but through the quality of daily communication. The way people speak to each other shapes how they feel about each other over time. When communication is respectful, it strengthens trust, reduces emotional distance, and allows deeper understanding to develop naturally. Respect in communication begins with recognizing the value of the other person. It means acknowledging that their thoughts, feelings, and perspectives matter even when there is disagreement. This simple recognition changes the entire tone of a conversation. Instead of approaching discussions as battles to be won, respectful communication turns them into opportunities to understand each other better. This shift in mindset is essential for building emotional closeness, because people feel more connected when they are treated with dignity rather than opposition. One of the most important aspects of respectful communication is tone. The same words can either build connection or create distance depending on how they are said. A calm and considerate tone communicates care, even during difficult conversations. It shows that the goal is not to hurt or dominate, but to express and resolve. When tone is respectful, even challenging topics can be discussed without damaging the emotional bond between people. This allows honesty to exist without fear, which is a key foundation for emotional intimacy. Respectful communication also involves listening with genuine attention. Emotional connection grows when a person feels truly heard. This means not interrupting, not rushing to respond, and not mentally preparing a counterargument while the other person is still speaking. Instead, it involves being present, trying to understand the meaning behind the words, and acknowledging what is being shared. When someone feels listened to, they naturally feel more connected to the person listening because it creates a sense of importance and validation. Another key element is the choice of words. Respectful communication avoids language that humiliates, exaggerates, or generalizes. Words that attack character or question worth can create emotional wounds that are difficult to heal. On the other hand, words that focus on behavior rather than identity help maintain respect while addressing issues. This distinction is important because it allows problems to be discussed without damaging the person's sense of self. When people feel safe in how they are being spoken to, emotional connection becomes stronger. Respectful communication also requires emotional control. In moments of frustration or disagreement, it is easy to speak impulsively. However, impulsive words often carry emotions that can harm the relationship. Choosing to pause, breathe, and respond thoughtfully instead of reacting immediately is a sign of emotional maturity. This control prevents unnecessary damage and keeps communication constructive. Over time, this creates a pattern of safety where both people know that even during conflict, respect will not be lost. Timing also plays an important role in respectful communication. Even respectful words can lose their impact if delivered at the wrong moment. Choosing the right time to talk shows consideration for the other person's emotional state. It demonstrates awareness that communication is not only about expression, but also about reception. When conversations happen at appropriate times, they are more likely to lead to understanding rather than resistance, which strengthens emotional connection. Respectful communication also includes the ability to acknowledge differences without trying to force agreement. Emotional connection does not require identical opinions, but it does require mutual respect for differing perspectives. When people feel that their individuality is accepted, they become more open and emotionally available. This acceptance reduces tension and allows relationships to grow in a healthier and more stable way. Another important aspect is the willingness to take responsibility for one's words. When communication is respectful, there is openness to recognize mistakes and correct them when necessary. Apologizing when wrong and clarifying misunderstandings shows humility and strengthens trust. This willingness to take responsibility prevents resentment from building and keeps emotional connection intact even after conflicts. Respectful communication also reduces emotional distance over time. In relationships where disrespect is frequent, people begin to withdraw emotionally as a form of protection. They may stop sharing openly, avoid certain conversations, or emotionally disconnect to avoid being hurt. In contrast, respectful communication encourages openness. When people know they will be treated with respect, they are more likely to share their thoughts and feelings honestly, which deepens emotional connection. Consistency is another key factor. Respectful communication is not effective when it happens occasionally. It must be a consistent practice. Over time, consistent respect builds emotional security. People begin to trust that they will be treated well, even in difficult situations. This trust becomes the foundation of a strong emotional bond that can withstand challenges. Respectful communication also encourages empathy. When people communicate respectfully, they naturally begin to consider how the other person might feel. This awareness helps reduce misunderstandings and promotes compassion. Empathy strengthens emotional connection because it allows individuals to feel understood on a deeper level, beyond surface-level conversations. In addition, respectful communication transforms conflict. Instead of becoming destructive, conflict becomes an opportunity for growth and understanding. When respect is maintained, disagreements do not damage the relationship, but instead reveal areas that need attention. This approach allows relationships to evolve rather than break under pressure. Understanding his perspective before reacting is a crucial skill in building a healthy, stable, and emotionally intelligent relationship because it shifts communication from impulse to awareness and from conflict to comprehension. In many relationships, misunderstandings do not arise from a lack of love or intention, but from a lack of understanding. When a reaction comes before true understanding, emotions take control, and the conversation often moves away from resolution and toward defensiveness. Taking the time to pause and consider his perspective creates space for clarity, reducing unnecessary tension and helping both people feel heard and respected. Every person sees situations through the lens of their own experiences, emotions, and thought patterns. This means that what is said or done is often interpreted differently by each individual. When reactions happen immediately, without considering this difference in perception, assumptions take over. These assumptions may not reflect the true intention behind his words or actions. By choosing to understand his perspective first, it becomes possible to separate intention from interpretation, which is essential for fair and balanced communication. Understanding his perspective requires patience. It means allowing him to express his thoughts fully without interruption, even when there is a strong desire to respond immediately. In that space of listening, important details often emerge that can completely change how the situation is viewed. What initially seemed offensive or careless may actually stem from stress, concern, confusion, or a completely different understanding of the situation. Without listening first, these important elements remain hidden, leading to reactions based on incomplete information. Emotional control plays a significant role in this process. In moments of disagreement or tension, emotions tend to rise quickly, and the natural response is to defend or correct. However, reacting too quickly often escalates the situation. Choosing to slow down internally allows space for empathy to develop. Instead of focusing only on personal feelings, attention shifts toward trying to understand what he might be experiencing. This shift does not dismiss personal emotions, but it balances them with awareness of the other person's viewpoint. Understanding his perspective also involves recognizing that his communication style may differ. Some people express themselves directly, while others are more reserved or indirect. Misinterpretation often happens when these differences are not considered. What may sound harsh in tone might simply be a straightforward way of speaking, and what may seem like distance might actually be a way of processing emotions internally. Without understanding these differences, reactions can become misaligned with the actual intention behind the message. Another important aspect is empathy. Empathy allows a person to step outside of their immediate emotional response and imagine what the situation looks like from his point of view. This does not mean agreeing with everything, but it does mean making an effort to understand why he might feel, think, or act in a certain way. This understanding reduces judgment and opens the door for more meaningful dialogue. When empathy is present, reactions become more thoughtful rather than impulsive. Understanding his perspective before reacting also helps prevent unnecessary conflict. Many arguments escalate simply because the initial reaction is based on misunderstanding. A quick response without reflection can turn a small issue into a larger emotional exchange. When there is a habit of pausing to understand first, many of these conflicts are avoided altogether. The conversation becomes more focused on solving the issue rather than defending positions. This practice also builds emotional maturity. It requires discipline to hold back immediate reactions and choose understanding instead. Over time, this discipline strengthens communication skills and improves relationship dynamics. Emotional maturity is not about suppressing feelings, but about managing them in a way that promotes clarity and connection rather than confusion and distance. Another benefit is increased trust. When someone feels that their perspective is being genuinely considered before judgment, they are more likely to open up. This openness creates a safe emotional environment where both individuals feel comfortable expressing themselves honestly. Trust grows when communication is not rushed and when both voices are given space to be understood. Understanding his perspective also helps in identifying underlying issues. Sometimes what is expressed on the surface is only a reflection of deeper concerns. A reaction might be triggered by stress, fatigue, external pressure, or past experiences that are not immediately visible. By taking time to understand, it becomes possible to recognize these deeper layers, leading to more effective and compassionate responses. This approach also strengthens emotional connection. When people feel understood, they feel valued. Being understood is one of the most powerful emotional needs in any relationship. It creates a sense of belonging and acceptance. When reactions are replaced with understanding, communication becomes a bridge rather than a barrier. Practicing this habit consistently transforms the way conflicts are handled. Instead of reacting automatically, there is a shift toward responding thoughtfully. This shift changes the entire tone of communication. Conversations become calmer, more respectful, and more productive. Even when disagreements occur, they are less likely to damage the emotional bond between two people.